It's so good to see you, and we're so glad to welcome you to our house. You may not know this about me, but before Sienna, I worked at Marygrove College. And so I was indoctrinated into higher education through the lens of the African-American community. And so in the African-American community, it's always important to understand that anybody who comes, you are welcome into your house. So welcome to our house. I'm going to introduce, do you want to put the welcome slide up? I'm going to introduce Dr. Jennifer Heisler, who is our division chair, and she's going to give you a welcome and some, logistics like bathrooms and important things like that.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Sienna Heights. We are thrilled that you're here today. Thank you for making the drive on this wet, chilly morning, but we have a wonderful day planned for you. So some of the logistics are that the posters will be up all morning. So if you didn't get a chance to peruse a poster, please do that. Just beyond the initial posters out here is the resource room for special education resource room. So if you haven't had a chance to stick your head in there, that's a good place to stop by. And just beyond that are the bathrooms, which is an important place to go. So the bathrooms. Lunch will be across the way in the UC. If we could please go together in a group, our cafeteria staff need to count us so that we can be charged appropriately for lunch. Once we are in there in the lunchroom cafeteria, the field experience breakout room will stay there. There's a room upstairs for you there. The rest of us will come back here and we'll have breakout rooms here. The deans and directors are on this level across the hall, and certification and the other breakout rooms are both upstairs. But there are signs for you upstairs. Which room is
It's on the slide.
Oh. It's on a slide.
Okay. I believe that. I just didn't know what room I was supposed to go to. Okay, thank you.
All right. So without further ado, we have Dr. Sherry Betts here as part of our administration, and she also would like to give you a warm welcome.
Good morning, and again, this is your third welcome, so we really feel like we have welcomed you appropriately a number of times. We've done that this morning already. I'm Dr. Sherry Betts, EDD, and I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm bringing you greetings from Dr. Palmer, our president, our 11th president, who started at the helm of the ship over the summer. He apologizes he's unable to be here with you today. I want to first say thank you, and I'm going to end with a thank you. So thank you to Dr. Heisler, Dr. Brown, Dr. Mitchell, and Sally Ray for all the work that you've done to make today happen. And if you see them, please also extend your gratitude, because this is, as you can just imagine, this is quite a bit of an undertaking. So thank you, not only for what you've done today, but for all that you give to the university at Sienna Heights University. And I also want to thank you individually. As an educator, it's important work that you're doing, and you're influencing future educators. And so I was thinking about a story that I could share with you, and something that was very impactful for me 30 years ago. And I have shared this with one other person. It actually was just in the hall with one of our students. In the 5th grade, my family moved to a whole new county in Michigan, and for a 4th grader going into 5th grade, this was a big deal. I was nervous. I knew no one. I was afraid of going into a new school. And about a week before school began, my teacher showed up at my house. And I thought, I haven't even started yet. What have I done? And he just wanted to introduce himself to me and my family. And I thought, okay, nice to meet you, Mr. Bruni. Later I found out that he went to every student's house to introduce himself. And so I just remember that as just such an impactful thing 30 plus years ago as a 5th grader. So thank you for whoever educated Mr. Bruni into doing that, because that calmed me, helped me center. Now I can look back and see that, but it helped me understand that I had a place, that I belonged at that school. So thank you for your work and enjoy your day.
Well, I do want to not let a moment go by without thanking people. We have many people to thank, but the people that we can thank right now are those folks who helped you get where you're going. I think every student here but one is a teacher education student. Is it? You're not, right? Yeah. We're working on it. There we go. So thank you very much, students, and we'll see you Monday. Okay, Brian, we ready to go on? Next slide. Okay, so let's do some Dartep business. I think we have to approve the minutes, and I actually had my act together this time and sent them to you. What a shock. Were there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Anything online, Brian?
There are 40 people online, but nobody's commenting about the minutes.
Okay, so we need to have a motion to approve. Okay, Sally Ray moved and seconded. Help me. Barbara seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And people who don't care? All right, that is passed. All right, next up is Beth with our budget report. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so, the places you'll go for our meeting dates. Next meeting is virtual. But the time after that, we have a unique opportunity because we have two different institutions who are stepping up. I am so grateful that two different places were willing to do this. The trick is the timing. So CMU has said they would be willing to host, but they have to host that weekend, that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's the only time they can host. It has to do with stuff on the campus and hotels and everything else. Western has also stepped up, and the only time they can help host, is May 1st through the 3rd. So we need to take a vote to say which one of these we're going to do. So both institutions are willing to do the accreditation workshop as well as the Dartep meeting, as we've done in the past when we were at Hope. So we need to have, I'd like to have a backup. Sally, will you be my backup and help me count?
Sure.
Okay, so if you would rather go to CMU, oh, there's a poll. That's just the online, sorry. The online folks will poll, but everybody else in here, if CMU works better for you, would you please raise your hand? Well, this is an easy count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, raise them high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, 12. All right, and if Western works better, would you please raise your hand? Okay, so I think Western works better for most people. All right, so we will be at Western on May 1st through the 3rd.
I like my orange.
Thank you very much. All right, next slide, Brian.
The online poll had the same sort of split.
Okay, good. Brian said that the online poll had the same split, so that's definitely where we're going. Beth, you're up.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying sporting your new Dartep wear. Yay. Thank you again to Dartep and to Cope for covering the cost for our paid members. I think I maybe have 3 extra shirts, so if you didn't order one and you are a paid member, see me afterwards. And if you are here and colleagues from your institution are not, I would love for you to take the shirts home, otherwise they're not gonna get them until May. So please take them home to your neighbors if you can. You can see me, they're still out there. Listed here are all of the universities or colleges that have paid dues this year. So we have a nice robust list. Brian, if you could go to the next slide, please. So we have 29 institutions registered and 143 members this year. The end of October's balance, again, pretty healthy, $28,342.88. We did pay Spring Arbor for hosting lunch for us last time. McKellar is the company that did our Dartep shirts for us, and so I wanted to let you know what the cost of those turned out to be. And again, we did get that donation from Coat so that they could close out their accounts. Overall, you know, we switched our dues paying method this year to using the link right on the Dartep website. That has worked out very well. Some of you were still able to mail checks to me. One got lost in the mail, we thought, and it turns out a different secretary grabbed it and never gave it to me for about 3 or 4 weeks. So my apologies to that institution who went through the trouble of canceling the check and going on. But all in all, I think it worked out really well, so we will continue to institute that practice. If you have any questions about the budget, you're always welcome to see me. So thanks, hope you have a great session today.
I think a big thank you for Beth for spearheading the jackets and making all that come true. So how about a big thank you? Okay, so let's do some organization reports. Let's start with MACT, who is from, oh, it's Sally.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming in the rain, and I'm glad it wasn't snow. I will always take rain over snow, except for our college students who would have rather had snow rather than umbrellas. So that's a great group of kids, by the way. We've got a couple of really solid groups coming up. So thank you for those of you that said, this is awesome. That made their day. So thank you for doing that. I have one piece of news that I need to share related to MACD, but related to all of us. Before I do the actual report. Ann Tapp, many of you know Ann Tapp from Saginaw, early childhood. She has just been elected chair-elect for the AACTE Board of Directors. So those of you that know Lynn Gangone, it's kind of crazy that Ann will be Lynn's boss. So we've seen Lynn in so many different things, but Ann is very humble about that. But the reason I share that, Ann would be the last one to want to share something like that about her. But what that means, Ann is a Michigander. And what that means for us in Michigan is we have somebody who loves MACD, who loves Dartep, who loves Michigan. And we have resources available almost immediately for anything that we need with Ann at a national level. So that's going to be a really cool piece for us to have. So if you get a chance to say something to Ann, congratulate her on that. She is the first, I believe, the first professor to ever hold that position. It's always been deans, it's always been provosts, and we believe it is. She's not sure for historical reasons, but she hadn't looked that far back. So I think it's the first time that's ever been a professor, and she beat out a dean and a provost. So it's kind of cool that our own Ann Tapp is now chair-elect for the board of directors of AACTE. I just said last night, remember us when, okay? So, I don't ever read announcements, but I want to read this so that we just get it straight. MACD is at a transitional period right now. Doug is here and he's a grandpa for the 3rd time. That's awesome. And we're all just a little seasoned that are sitting on the board right now. And so it's kind of a time, you know, that ever so often the MDE changes the standards. Well, it's time for MACD to kind of change the leadership. And it's just cyclical, and we're just at that point. So we've decided, I need everybody to open your calendars up and look at December 18th. please. December 18th. Okay, our hope is at 10 o'clock on December 18th, MACD, we're gonna host a 1-hour business meeting. The purpose is gonna be to fill some of the interim positions. And at this point, Marcia Fetters and Jillian Davidson have both stepped up and said that they would like to be a part of leadership. In the past, we've had moments where I've been in front of a window in a hotel room and one of the board members said, I'm not moving until you say you'll be chair, right? So it's that kind of leadership roles. I remember Doug's was a little bit interesting as well. But we need to step up and we need to rejuvenate the leadership. This is such an important organization. And the things that we do, it's not a sales pitch. This is the cool part of MACD. We get things done. I mean, Dartep is the informational horse. We're the workhorse of getting things changed. And so many of the changes that have been made around the state have gone through MACD. It's time for some people to step up. So we're going to host a 1-hour informational meeting, business meeting. We're going to nominate board members. We're going to, anybody else that's interested in participating or providing feedback for the workings of MACD will be able to get involved in the governing and governance and planning, or just curious about what MACD is about. December 18th at 10 o'clock for an hour. We're going to be virtual. We'll be doing a quick election for the interim board to fill vacancies and plan for the election this spring for the term starting in July. For the years past, MACD has always done our leadership changes in July up in Marquette with Joe Libby at NMU. We haven't had that for the last couple of years, and so we've missed that July piece. So we're ready for the stepping up of MACD and getting back. There's so much that needs to be shifted and changed within education right now. And this is probably a really good time for us to have a voice with somebody who's the chair-elect for AACT as well, helping us in our corner. So this is I'm not sales pitching here. This is a prime time to get involved. If you're going to be around in higher ed for a while, this is the time for you to get involved with MACD. So we're looking for board members to step up and to really deal with some of the issues that are coming up. If you're not available at that time, we'll also include a survey for you to come and share your interests of what's going on. Okay. So please mark your calendars for 10 o'clock, December 18th, virtually. Just grab your coffee, take an hour and sit with us. And if you're interested in being a part of it, you can certainly contact any of us that are on the board currently. Ann and I are chair emeritus just because we've been there and we get to sit there forever if we want. But we would love to have the bylaws show that we have president-elect, president in the past. So we'd like to have that back in place, and we just need the bodies to do that, to get the workhorse started again. What questions do you have for me about MACD at this point in December 18th? Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Sally, not a question.
Do you want to show a picture of your grandson? Is that what
you 2017, up at Northern, I was asked to be a part of the MACD board. And I'm going to tell you that it's one of the absolute highlights of my time in higher ed. The opportunity to work with some unbelievable educators on very important stuff was just so cool for me. And I'm one of those board members that needs to be replaced. And it is an awesome experience. I would really encourage any one of you to carve out. It's not a great amount of time, but the time that's spent is so valuable. So there's my plug.
Perfect. Yes, ma'am.
Will you be sending out a calendar invitation with the link?
Sure. Yep, we'll get all that done. We talked 2 days ago, and I just said, Dartep's coming. Who's going to be speaking for MACD? So yeah, so that's fresh on our plates about that. So yeah, December 18th, 10 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Doug.
I am remiss in that I didn't thank CMU for stepping up and volunteering to help us out. And I hope that next year will be the CMU year. How about Michigan Public Meetings? Is anybody here to speak? Ah, Stein.
So just in case you think I'm impersonating a dean, I'm not. But I often attend the Michigan Public Dean's meeting because my dean has conflicts with that. So I'll do the report. There's not really much to report. The group was so small when we met back in October that we didn't even have a quorum. So we wanted to elect new board members, but we couldn't because we didn't have enough people, one, to even be nominated, and two, to even elect and vote for. So we had updates, similar updates that MDE provided at the Dartep meeting back in October, legislative updates and so on and so forth. But the next meeting, if you either are a dean or you are asked to represent your dean at these meetings, the next meeting is this coming Wednesday. I will provide more information on that, but since we're a bit of a rudderless ship, no more information has been sent out. So I don't have a Zoom link to send out to folks. So, but there will be, the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday. And hopefully that didn't come off sounding as disorganized as I think it did sound. But if you are either a dean or associate dean, or you're asked to represent your institution at the public dean's meeting, please check with me and I'll make sure to get you information on the next meeting.
You know, I know people are kind of uncomfortable sometimes when they're being clapped for, but think about it. Athletes get clapped for all the time, right? Entertainers get clapped for all the time. Even social media people, when they show up, get clapped for. Come on, we're as good as those folks, if not better. We have, let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is my pie, and Lori Burgess submitted these notes, and Lori is stepping down as the chair of my pie. So, wow, all these leadership things open at the same time. Sky's the limit, go for it. Lori would like to meet with anybody who would like to discuss the responsibilities of being the my pie chair. And you will have access to these slides, so I'm not going to do the professor thing and read the slides to you. You'll have access to those slides by the end of the meeting. Okay, next slide is MDE. Who's up?
All right, good morning, everybody. We have a nice team with us today, and we have a surprise team member, which we'll get to in like, a minute or so. But looking around, Jason Kalmbach right over here from our data and accountability unit. Down in front here, we have Dr. Alham Bazi from the educator preparation unit. We have Dana Billings from our Office of Special Education. We have Krista Reed, our Professional Educator Certification Services Unit Manager. And we have Bridget McDowell, our Education Specialist, Assessment Specialist for MTTC within my unit. And Catherine Wygent is here. You've seen her before, both as an MDE person, as an OU person, and now she's here as an MDE person doing our contracting with us. And if you've been involved if you've had an accreditation visit or any kind of preparation lately, you will have encountered her. If you've been involved with some of our standards builds, you will have encountered her. But we have a surprise member of OEE teams. So we have, we do a customer service survey. You see the little, at the ends of our emails, you can click through and do this. And there's a place where it says, what's the exact wording of the question? An OEE representative that gave you exceptional service, right?
Would like to recognize for exceptional service.
Would you like to recognize an OEE representative for exceptional service? So Krista is going through the data from the past month. And according to the survey results, Jennifer Hetzler is an employee of OEE because she got a shout out from somebody. I'll read you the praise, and then we can send it to you so Diane can put it in your performance evaluation or something like that. Yeah. says, I really liked the simplicity and user-friendly CPAST module format. I feel like this evaluation tool is thorough with its, they put an apostrophe in, so you're gonna watch this with your candidates, with its questions and precise with details for the rating answers. I could understand clearly the difference between the levels of responses. This type of grading format is essential when evaluating student teachers. So I mean, they probably meant that. One method is used and not several that state the same thing. Thank you for using this format. So not only a plug for local work, but for the CPAST work that has been going on in our state in the pilot. So there you go. Thank you for your service. Okay, let's go through a few things here. First off is my reminder to take a look at your Dartep updates, the written ones that go out always on the Dartep website, always valuable. So there we go. Next is program closure documentation. So as we are approving, as you should be noticing, as we're approving new grade band programs from your universities, we are requesting closure of the old programs. So as a English language arts 59712 programs are approved, we're requesting within that letter the closure documentation for your English and language arts separate programs. And we give you about a 6-month window in that to do it. This is a reminder to attend to that. We have on our tracking, we're waiting for quite a few things, but of course we've also had quite a flurry of new approvals. So, you know, that it's 6 months, right? And it's 2 pieces, a report of program closure, and then a roster of people that are completing it. This is really important for 2 reasons. One is on ProPrep, our directory of approved programs. So we have an accurate record for the public as to what's available and where in the state. But it's also important for the inside of MOEX so that your candidates who are graduating from these phasing out programs are able to seamlessly apply for their certificates when they're ready for it. So in that roster, you give us, you know, when you anticipate that date, it'll come off of the public directory, but it'll stay open for people to select when they're applying for a certificate. And we want to make sure that that's seamless as possible for your candidates. This question does come up a lot. So to say publicly, rosters can be updated. So as you've submitted a roster, it's not necessarily the final word. We don't expect that you are admitting, we don't want you to be continuing to admit people into the old programs. But as has been the case, and Diane and I have robust emails on this, speaking of her former role at Marygrove, candidates may come out the woodwork who graduated a long time ago and you didn't think they might come back to you. And so we want to be able to help those individuals earn the certificate that you prepared them for. So that the rosters can be updated as you find additional people, or a district says, I got this huge grow your own grant, and it really is for the old elementary program. So we have this new cohort that is going to be supported. Thank you, state, for giving us money for this. We can shoehorn, lift the tent, whatever metaphor you want, those individuals into your rosters too, so we can make sure everybody gets certified. All right, next, legislative updates. A couple of things here. One, the legislature adjourned early. They'll resume in January, so there's not a lot of action coming. You'll see a flurry of press releases from the governor signing legislation that has gone through, and then just not acting on other things. There are a couple of pieces that were signed recently that are now law. The 2 laws, new bills that are now law around educator evaluations were signed. Those become effective on July 1st, 2024. essentially this takes, it modifies how the evaluation should be calculated, we're into the student growth component, and then the things to which that evaluation is tied. So right now, advancing to a professional, you have to have 3 years of successful teaching that is, or you have to have 3 effective or highly effective ratings on your standard in order to advance. That's going to go away. It'll still be, you'll still have to have teaching service, and you'll still have to have taken a reading diagnostics class and have appropriate professional learning to be able to advance. But the tie to ratings is going to disappear. And the same goes for advancing to the advanced professional. The second is the House Bill 4752 on retiree employment, allowing for easier transition back to the classroom or back to school employment for retirees without sacrificing their pensions. Office of Retirement Services is completely responsible for implementing that and providing the guidance. We're just, you may have, it might affect some of you, perhaps. And not a legislative update, but it came out this morning. So there's the new department is MyLeap, lifelong education and advancement for people. I don't have it memorized. It's a little sore spot, I think, with some of us in the department. It officially becomes a thing today. So all of our early childhood offices have now migrated over to a new area, and all of the Treasury folks who do the My Student Aid are now migrated over into MyLeap. So we'll no longer, it'll be like the last time we call this the Treasury updates, and it is MyLeap. Their acting director is Michelle Richard. She is a 2006 graduate of Saginaw Valley State University in elementary education, and has been senior education advisor to the governor. And so she's acting director. And that's it. That's all we know right now. We don't know about the leadership of the individual offices within or what kinds of other structures are going to be built in place in MyLeap. What we do know is, like, all of our early childhood offices are just going and dropped in whole, and they're going to stay that way for about 3 months while the new leadership in MyLeap strategizes how to streamline and organize things around them. So there'll be more to come on that. But it's good to know. They have a new website. They're temporarily headquartered in the Grand Traverse Pie Company building in downtown Lansing, officially called the Landmark Building, but what's most recognized? The most recognizable landmark there is a Grand Traverse Pie that no longer operates. Much to the chagrin of some people left behind in MDE, everybody who's not in the upper tier of leadership of that new department gets to work remotely 100% until September 30th, 2024, because there's not enough space in Grand Traverse Pie Company to accommodate, 400, 500 people in cubicles. So there you go. That's the latest from state government. Okay, so the My Future Educator Program updates, as it happens, these slides come to me every 2 weeks, and I distribute the information out. If you go to the next, I can do this, right? Yeah, okay. This data is the same as what was in the update I sent earlier this week. So what I sent earlier this week, the only thing that's different is what you got earlier this week said as of 11/13/2023. And this week's update, there's no changes to any of the numbers. That means, well, one, they're transitioning and trying to move to a new a new department. But two, there's a holding tank of applications that aren't registered here yet for thinking about people in the spring. So just sharing those numbers, as you can see, a much higher percentage of people are eligible in this academic year than in the last academic year. And that's leading to a higher payout, particularly in the fellowship. In the stipend, you can see it hasn't, but this is not including our people who are going to be in the spring, right? Our folks who are going to be student teaching in the spring, that they haven't been paid out yet because it's not that time. But there you go. So those are the numbers. Go to the next slide. And that just gives you the same numbers kind of in a different format, so you can see them all there. I'd like to welcome now to the stage Bridget McDowell to speak to you about some new findings with our tests. So
Can you repeat that?
So yeah, exactly. Gail's question was, are all of the changes around educator evaluations that have been in the news, like reducing the student growth or eliminating the student growth component, eliminating the connection to tenure, and eliminating some of the high stakes, basically all the high stakes things to it. Are those all included in that? I think it was pretty much an omnibus that cut all of that, right, Krista?
That's my report.
Yeah. So it's all there. Yes. So the question was, even though there's not an obligation to teach in Michigan tied to the stipend, the way there is with the fellowship, are there plans to track the data on are these individuals are getting employed in Michigan? Is this having an impact? And the answer is yes. We're just got a data sharing agreement with the Department of Treasury, which now has to be changed because none of those people work in Treasury. To set up a secure file transfer, so we can share those student teacher rosters with them, so they can project, and then they can share with us who's getting it, and then Epic, speaking of MSU, is going to be helping us with the data tracking on that and seeing if that measure has an impact. Yeah, that's a good question. There's, a year ago, we were like, we don't know what this will be, this will be. The assurance we get from the legislature and the state budget office is, yeah, this is a thing that'll be in there. The fellowship had established some permanent funds, so in last year's budget, so that it could be sustained beyond, this year. And then, of course, if you have like 10,000 new candidates, right, that would exhaust the money that's been allocated, that they could be picked up. So there's that. I know one of Treasury's asks is that it be put into the general fund, that there be some money allocated in the general fund, particularly for the stipend, to benefit those of our candidates who are in private institutions and teaching in private schools. And we hope that the legislature would pick that up for sure. But yeah, we advocate for it. The people who are directly responsible for administrating advocate for it, and so there's no signal that it would be going away. All right, yeah, Bridget, come on up.
Hi, everybody. I am so excited to talk to you about everybody's favorite topic, high-stakes standardized testing. So as you know, we launched the lower and upper elementary MTTC test last July and September respectively, and that's been a good bit of time because, as you also know, lots of people have been taking them, whether they were in the old program and they've kind of transitioned to the new test to get their certificate, or they're just, exiting the new program, very first people. And of course, data is really important. So we were talking in our office about ways that we can kind of how can we talk about the data? Because there's a lot of it, it's structured differently, right, with the subtests. So that's what we're going to do. So just as some reminders, each test each endorsement has 4 subtests, right? Professional, literacy, math, science, social studies combined. A candidate has to pass all 4 subtests for each endorsement. There is no mix and match, except just kidding, you can mix and match with professional. So you could take the lower professional test and then the 3 content areas for upper elementary, right? And get that endorsement, that's fine. And as always, you do not pass a sub area. So within, say, like, science and social studies, there are 2 science sub areas, and then there's a social studies sub area. Those 3 sub areas contribute to whether or not you pass the sub test. Does that make sense? This sounds familiar. Okay, cool. Great. Okay. Yeah, so I did another really cool thing with everybody's favorite topic. I'm gonna click a link and we're gonna look at tiny numbers on a screen. To help with that, Beth, would you mind passing these out? How do I get the link to, or actually, okay, so we're gonna look at some data. What Beth is passing out, and we probably need to share copies, is that is statewide data of eligible candidates. So folks that you all said are yours. And it's everybody who's tested from a traditional route program. So alt routes are excluded from this, out-of-state folks are excluded from this. It is how it's the overall pass rate. So there's a couple different things we're looking at. And I'm going to try to remember off the top of my head how it works out. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. I clicked on it earlier.
Okay. The data is also in the link. There's a way that people have that right now or not yet? Sorry.
I'm sure I don't think.
Yeah.
Share the slide deck yet, but we'll...
Okay. We will share the slide deck. The Google slide has a couple really cool things in it. 1, it has the data that I want us to look at. And 2, it has another tab for instructions on how you can pull your own institution's data. So it's statewide, it's everybody, it's eligible candidates only. It's everybody who's tested through September 30th of this year. So it's as much information as we currently have available. There's for each field, so LE professional, literacy, LE math, etc. Then we list the sub areas for each sub area within the test. We have a column for the N, the number of people who have taken that sub test. We have the N pass, so the number of people who passed it, and we'll have the percent of people who've passed it. So that's what those 3 number columns mean. So if you were looking at the slides, which I'm so sorry I messed this up, for LE professional, 376 people have taken the lower elementary professional subtest. 357 people have passed. So it's 95%, which is amazing, right? Excellent.
Is that cumulative or initial?
It's cumulative. Yeah, it's everybody. So if one person has taken it about 20 times and failed every time, that's probably the difference between your N and N pass, right? That's one person could be 5%. And then we have the sub area mean. So the sub area mean, you know, when they get their official score report, it gives them a scale of 1 to 4 pluses and how they did within that domain within the test. All I did was I just exported the data to Excel and I used average, and that's what we got. So I went to 1 decimal place. That's such an awesome question. If I had my slides, so we can just do it now. But, so what would be great is if you could, you know, on your own or with a partner, just kind of talk about what you're noticing. What questions do you have? How, if this were your institution's data, what questions would you have? So let's just take a couple minutes while this gets sorted out and on your own. And
Okay, so let's take a moment and talk as a group about things that you noticed. There's some stuff that our team noticed when we were looking at the report, but I'm really curious, especially like if you know this. Imagine this were your data. What are some things that you saw? Positives, concerns?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we just kind of look at the test, like the pass rate, right? Because you have so many endorsements, who has the time to really break it down and look at the sub area level? I would say the folks teaching your classes would really want to know. Yeah.
Could you repeat questions?
The question was just kind of a general comment about the literacy subtests and why are those seeming to be lower performing, and noticing within the literacy subtest that there are specific areas that seem to be consistently lower. They have a lower mean. So for the folks online, there was a comment about how one program is structured where candidates are encouraged to get the lower elementary endorsement first, so that's their kind of primary, and then they can choose to add on the upper elementary endorsement. And so noticing that the lower elementary rates seem to be a little higher performing, might that be a cause for concern about what it could mean for upper elementary? Is that are they not getting enough there as originally planned? So it was shared that candidates can, that providers have the option, if you've had somebody in the old CG program that was maybe struggling with the 103 test, they are allowed to show that they're ready for either the ZO or ZP endorsement and take those tests instead. And they're noticing that those candidates are maybe not, how are they performing? The ones who struggle with 103, how are they performing on the new tests? And that's a really good question. I don't know that, so I couldn't pull that. I mean, I guess I could figure it out, but yeah, I think as an EPI that you would definitely want to take a look at your rosters and see who's been testing, who used to take the 103 test, how are they doing on this now? Maybe I was wondering the opposite. Maybe they're kind of boosting your scores, because these might be people who've been working on like a full year basic, trying to get over that 103 test. And so the experience is helping, but that's just me making guesses. So. Yeah, so
That's how.
yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Michelle mentioned that for the folks who had been taking the 103 test, that now they have this, universal accommodation that we built into the exam, that they can take one area at a time, which can be really helpful to just focus on math, just focus on literacy. And it sounds like maybe you're seeing some success with students being able to have that.
Students are commenting on the difference between costs.
Yeah, so Justine raised the difference in cost, and we've been talking about that for a couple of years, right? That's definitely, it's a known problem. I agree. Now there's the grant, yeah. So yeah, that's really amazing too. That we have the MTTC test fee reimbursement grant that is just getting off the ground. But it's really exciting to have that money coming through for candidates. I think that's going to help a lot of people. We also, we adjusted the voucher pricing, which has pluses and minuses to kind of maximize. The intent was to maximize the funds, but yeah, cost is a concern. And of course, just they do have the upfront cost of, paying for it and then getting reimbursed. It's not a voucher kind of system. Can we get the next, do I press the arrow for the next slide or? Yeah, so here are some things that our office noticed looking at it. Same like Doug mentioned, or one thing that we noticed, there's a lot more LE candidates taking it than UE, and that might be part of what was mentioned earlier about the structure of programs, encouraging candidates to get the LE endorsement over UE. Or the UE might be additional. Like Doug mentioned, literacy is really tough for candidates. Definitely seeing that, especially the sub area 2 is low for both lower and upper elementary. That's a sub area. If you wanted to be extra and click through or go onto the NTTC site, that's where you'll see a lot of the foundational reading skills like phonics and phonological awareness, word recognition. So I'd say that's probably something, if this were my school's data, that's something I would want to take a look at. And that UE math sub area 3 is really lower than 1 and 2, and that's the one where you'll see, like, I think that's the one about fractions and decimals. So, and because if you look at the sample questions and you look at the practice test online, it's not asking can you divide 7/8 by 1/4. It's asking about what kind of resources would you use to talk about that with students. So it is a very different kind of mindset. Oh, I had one other thing that I was asked to remind people about. in terms of helping your candidates prepare for LE, UE, or basically any other MTTC, a new incentive that we're really excited to be able to offer folks from higher ed when they join an MTTC committee, whether it's for content or equity and access review, is that you will get a voucher code from Pearson for a practice test. You can use it for any practice test you want. You can give it to somebody if you want. Every time that you serve on an MTTC committee, you will get a practice test voucher code. So we just had a committee this week, yesterday, that met for the practice test for the reading specialist endorsement, because for some reason we've never had a practice test for that one. And we had some folks from Adrian, I think, Siena Heights. We had a few people join us, and they'll each get a practice test voucher code that they can either use for that exam, they could use it for an LE or UE exam. So that's an incentive that we're really excited to offer.
Good morning. I am feeling some shame at the moment because Bridget brought data to the discussion and I am with the Data Accountability Unit. I have to get it for you. But I figure I have sent you enough data over the year that should make up for my lack of data today. So just a couple of quick reminders I want to point out for folks. Just a reminder that you all, I think most EPPs still have to complete their data collection worksheets for ES. Right, so these reports are available on Ed Reports if you have access to that system. Those are due February 2nd, 2024. Right, so this is working with ES to put together that roster for who's going to be included in the MTTC pass rates that they forward onto Title II for your report filing in spring 2024. So I myself do not put my eyes on that data a whole lot, but ES does have, just a reminder, they do have that help desk. If you have specific questions, they can help you out in terms of filling out that worksheet. And some things I do control and do have my eyes on. So just a reminder that I think it was in late September, I emailed out templates to folks, just giving you an opportunity to give us a placements for any students that we might not have data for, right? So this goes back to the performance score where we have a calculation in there on the placement diversity calculation where we figure out what proportion of your candidates are placed in a diverse school. We have data for candidates who are placed in a public school within Michigan. If they are placed outside of Michigan or placed in Michigan, but at a non-public school, we don't have data for that specific school district, like what's the racial diversity of that school, what percent are sort of economically disadvantaged students. We don't have that data. So this is just a window of opportunity for you to supply that data to us if you so wish, and then I can include those candidates in your performance score calculation. I gave folks until the end of December to fill it out. So please, if you're going to fill it out, you got about a month to get it taken care of. And then when early January comes around, I will finalize those placements and I'll send you the data that I have at that point, once I have sort of that final metric about what the state average is for all candidates across all EPPs. I did not hit a button. Did somebody hit a button for me? No. Okay. Yeah. And then last point for you, just on the survey data, just a reminder that the fall winter 2023 candidate suite surveys that is out in the field distributed on November 5th. They have everybody has until February 11th to complete the survey. I have bi-weekly reminders programmed to go out from Qualtrics. So every 2 weeks, folks will get a reminder. They'll get the survey link again. So they just received a reminder this past Wednesday to please take the survey. That just goes to candidates who haven't completed, the candidates, supervisors, cooperating teachers who have not completed the survey yet. Just maybe one quick note here, a reminder FYI for folks. If you're working with somebody and they deleted the email, like the initial email that came out on November 15th, they will get that link again every 2 weeks. So you can just say, wait, I guess if they're really in a hurry, if they're in desperate need to take the survey, like right now, you can contact Dana and I, we can send out a customized link, but they will get the link again every 2 weeks. So there's no need for any special steps unless they're in a real hurry to take the survey. On the other hand, if they just never got the initial email, that means something maybe got blocked by the school's filter or whatnot, and then you need to come to Dana or I, and we can get a specialized link. We'll email it directly to whoever's not getting it. And then a reminder that you do have access to a dashboard there to check out who has taken the survey so far. I have been playing around with ways to improve that dashboard to give you more information. So if you have any specific information that you would like to see on the dashboard, let me know. I'm playing around with ways to actually start giving you calculations based on what's going on through the dashboard. I'm not sure I perfected it yet, so still all experimental at this point. But if there's any specific summary data that you would like to see, let me know and I'll see if I can incorporate it into the dashboard.
Jason, I want to go back to diverse placement data.
Yep.
2 questions. When is that number, the state average recalculated? Is that the start of the year? Is that in January? When does that get recalculated?
Yeah, so it gets calculated every year based on the last crop of students, last cohort of students that came
And
through.
again,
So
is that in August or is
It's-
that in January?
I have a calculation right now that is something around 72%. But it depends. I'm waiting for that placement data and it might probably would go up just a touch, like a fraction. It might go from like 72.3 to 72.5. Because
My question is more in line with the actual building diversity data and what the state average is for SES, what the state average is for exceptionality, what's the state average for ethnicity.
Mhm.
And then we can count the placement as a diverse placement.
Yep.
But when is that number adjusted?
Jason, can you repeat that for the online people, please?
Yep, so the question is, I understand, let's see if I'm gonna repeat it back right for you, Doug. So the question is, when does that data, the diversity data, the data that informs the diversity calculation, when does that get updated
Yes.
in the system? That comes from CEPI, I believe, and a couple other data sources. It was available on like the My School website. They had the sort of, so for this calculation, I'm using the 2022-23 school data for the calculation for the 2024 performance score. That 2022-23 data, I saw it on the My School website in the summer, around June. It was available for the past year.
So if we update our internal work in August, we've got the most accurate updated
Yeah.
information.
Yep, it should. So when you're in the My School website and you're assuming you're pulling that data from the My School website there. So as long as you can, like that, it has the year filter in there and you can just double check the year filter, but it select 22, 23. So like so for next year for 2024, so August 2024, you're doing it again, just to make sure you're able to select the 23-24 filter.
Then the second question is, again, you're looking specifically building by building as to where your candidates are placed rather than a district level.
Correct. One exception to that. So it is at the school building level. There are cases where we get students who are at some sort of like childhood placement or some childhood early education type placement. Sometimes those share the same school, like like within the elementary school, but they're kind of partitioned out in the EEM data file. Sometimes they're not, they look like there's something different. If I cannot find the data for an individual like early childhood program, we do zoom out to the district level. And in the files that I'm going to send you in January, I will have a column to the right that will note any changes there. So I'll be like, zoomed out to the district level for these 2 rows out of the 100 rows there. So you'll be in the loop about what I'm doing, whose data I'm pulling.
So in January, when you send us information, will that tell us buildings that are diverse?
Yeah. Yep. So you will have the candidate, you will have our record, what we understand where they were placed. And then right now I have it with, let's like 4 columns for racial diversity, socioeconomic status, learning disability, so forth. And it's coded, well, it's coded in 0s and 1s there. So like 0, not diverse, 1 diverse there. So you'll be able to tell. Yes.
So will there be a tab for all buildings in the state of Michigan?
Do you want it?
Yes.
I mean, I have the file.
Yes.
We
place our data.
yeah.
It's not online, so just promise everything.
Yeah, I can promise that. So I do get that data from someone. They send it to me, and then I use that and I match it up with the individual candidate. So it's there. If Kate was here, she would say we do have some concerns about blinding it because there are some cases where like if the N is under a certain point, we blind the data there, so you wouldn't get it for like schools that are, or like if only like 3 out of 100 students have a learning disability or something, we don't give you numbers when it's that low there. So we'd have to blind it a little bit. And I have to get the blind copy because I have the raw copy, not the blind copy, but yeah, that should be, actually, I'll double check, but I think you can get, no, you can't get the aggregate file from my school website, but it should be something we can do for you there. Should be an easy poll. I can promise things up for, because, you know, Kate's not here and I can blame her because she was here. But no, it shouldn't be a problem. Doug, were you thinking like in the summer?
Well, I was just saying to Catherine, one of the things I do in the summer, just at the start of the year, is I've got a spreadsheet with all of the buildings that we use, so that we understand whether or not that's going to be a diverse place.
Okay, yeah, so I don't know how many folks know Aishu there in our department. She's the one who provides that data file for me. So when I request that from her, I can also request one that has the blinded version of it for the small districts. And then I don't think there's any confidentiality issues with emailing that out to folks. So I'll double check with Kate, but I think it should be an easy do for folks.
On Wednesdays.
Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Yep.
So should I assume that on the 29th they got a reminder? Because it was 15th and the 29th.
It did go out. Yep, it did go out. So I actually add myself to the roster. So if they get emails, I get emails there. So yeah, so Wednesday, this past Wednesday on the 29th, I got emails at 8:01, 8:03, and 8 a.m. exactly there with the survey reminder stuff. Please take the survey. Do you swear and promise to never take the survey?
I just wondered if
Yeah.
maybe another alternate would be that when you send those out, you send it to the person who provided you the data, so that we have the email, then we know what it said to people. Either way, I don't care, it just would be helpful. Send it to them.
I don't think it's an issue. So what I would do is, so like what I do with me is I have like a special EP. So like we usually filter by EPP, right? I probably want to use your EPP. I would create a different filter and then I can filter those folks out when I do the score calculation there. So it's not a problem. I'm not opposed to it. So yeah, just shoot me an email and
I just email you with the issue, and then you can think on how you want us to do it. Because I wouldn't want that to count our completion rate. If I'm listed on there and then I don't complete the survey, now we have completed all of it. But at the same time, it would be helpful to have that information for us.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. I don't think it, I'm just thinking, are there any risks where I could screw it up and mess up the performance score? Add folks to the roster to do that. I can just, like Qualtrics has like a send preview email in it, but I'm trying to remember if I can only do one email at a time or if I can do multiple emails, do it in bulk. But I can just send you like a preview email and you'll get sort of like a test thing, and it'll have like the whole language and the header and all the official stuff that the candidates will see.
You mean the sub area performances? So, okay. So Kevin's question was, are the reports that Dana sends out, can they come with the same disaggregation of sub areas that are in the handout that those live got, and then those who are there? No, unfortunately, no. And could those be expanded? Because we'd have to talk to our vendor about that, because what we're sending you are reports that ES produces. And we try to be like minimal touch on those so that you're getting something like right. For any institution, of course, you can pull that right down in your own data from Results Analyzer and get all of that breakout pretty easily, which would then also like connect it right to the person. But Bridget, if you want to come up and say more on that.
So the example that we looked at today, after the meeting and we send out the slides, it's going to include the link that you can access. It has a Google sheet that has all that data, so you can look at that. And then there's another tab in that Google sheet that explains step by step how to pull that yourself. So.
All right, great. Good, thank you. Okay, what I have next is, well, two things. One, you might be asking, where the dickens is Jenny Dickens, our who was there before? I'm gonna keep using that joke as long as my grandson is still nonverbal. Tell me to stop. She is online, so if you have grow your own grant questions, she is there on Zoom. Would happy to address any questions in the chat. Or by other means. There is a brief update in the written updates that we expect a mid-December announcement of those round 2 awardees. What I have next is a kind of a quick overview of the cert structure implementation update. Krista noted there were questions in the cert officers job alike last time, kind of where are we? It's been a while since we've had kind of a look at this and had some very specific questions. What I'm planning to do right now is give you an update of where we are in this. And then during the lunch period, I'll be, and others of my team are, please join me for Cert Officers 101. We don't have a formal presentation for that during the lunch, but it is a time to come and chat with us. We'll show you the resources we have, and we can get into some of those nitty-gritty questions that you may have about where we are here, testing and things like that. And then that will lead right into the Cert Officers job alike. So if you want to go deeper than this, come and find us at lunch. So if we go to the next slide, Brian. There are 5 phases to the implementation of this. First is development of standards. Second is our state board approval. Third stage is new program and MTTC developments. Fourth stage is new program review. And then 5 is new program implementation and old program phase out. So you could see this diagram it's on our website. It is unchanged from the last time we shared it. So there's not a new thing to show on this, but I'm going to overlay in the next few slides kind of where we are phase by phase in each of these gray band areas. So BK, PK3, and 3.6, we are in phase 5. We have all of the applications in. We don't have everybody's phase out plans yet, but we're in phase 5. We're in implementation, and as you can see, we're generating data on these programs. So that's good to go. In the 5, 9, and 7, 12. Math and ELA, we're right in that middle between the 3 and 5, depending on institutions, right? Some of you have approved programs already in math and ELA. Some of you are submitting new programs. Those MTTCs are in development for debut next year, and next year being 2024. And you're going to get more information on that as we get firm dates for when people could start registering and when we'll pilot test and all of that. I know from doing processing applications and approvals, there are many programs that are starting this fall for those, and then there are a few that are going to be starting next fall. So we're in that 3 to 5 space depending on your institution. With science and social studies, we're pretty firmly in phase 3. Technical assistance has been around developing programs. The MTTCs are moving, they're further back in line than the math, ELA, and then the professional tests that goes with those grade bands. And so that's kind of where we are. We do have some programs that are in program review. We have some that have been approved and implemented already, or at least are projected to start next fall. in the area of science. Social studies, we have received applications for social studies in this past month. Those haven't been reviewed yet and approved, so that will be the next phase there. To go to the next slide. In the space of the things that are PK-12 and K-12, our languages, world language bilingual, ESL, we are firmly in phase 5, right? The standards have been implemented. We've now migrated programs from the narrower grade bands to PK-12. Some institutions haven't sent us all of the documentation to make that transition yet, but we're not reopening the standards and doing things like that, and we're not redoing tests. And that goes for that goes for health and PE. We will do a kind of an expedited this coming up in 2024. You all have these approvals for health and PE. It's time to transition from K-12 to PK-12, which should be a pretty painless process to get that done, since the programs are already K-12. So we're in phase 5. We're not redoing the standards on that. We're not redoing the MTTC. And then school counselor, I always forget that that's there. We are in phase 5 on that. It's K-12. It's staying K-12. The standards are not up for review or drafting. We're not changing the test framework. So school counselor, it can be considered transitioned to the new cert structure. Go to the next. We have visual arts and music, so the arts education pieces, and then special education are in phase 1. So that is standards development. And what I mean with standards development in arts and music is pretty simple. I mean, we've got old standards and they're being redeveloped. We've got teams projected to go have drafts that can go to the State Board of Education in 2024. And so we'll probably move into phase 2 during that. There is no space in our current contract with ES that expires in March of 2025 to start building those new tests. So we're okay if it takes a while to get through the board. There's no rush on that. And then in special education, though, when I say phase 1, we're talking about the new special education teacher, sort of a cross-categorical endorsement area, which Gina and Catherine are leading stakeholders in developing those standards. And so that's working. We are not going to the other categories right now, like LD, ASD, CI, any of that, and doing any changes to the MARS rules around them. We don't own that rule set, so we can't change like what the expectations are for those. And the tests have been recently redeveloped. So we have new tests going in those. So those other categories, those are phase 5. It's the special education teacher, the cross-categorical resource room endorsement that is in phase 1. Go to the next slide. Coming up, so we anticipate in 2024 and 25 getting started on the long delayed specialist standards. So reading specialist, transitioning it to a literacy specialist. We sort of hope that you will think that that's a thing that we could do, but if we have to stick with reading specialist as the name, we defer to our stakeholders and the educational community. And then a new credential math specialist. These two have been on here for a long time. We anticipate we had anticipated kicking off standards for those, multiple times within the last pandemic, and never quite got there. So with these other pieces all laid out, we will, we'll move forward with that. And then we've gotten questions on that bottom one, the business and industry education. which we really can't call vocational. We can't really call it career and tech. Those are very specific terms. So, business and industry education, which includes our family and consumer sciences, agri-science, things like that. In early 2024, we're going to send out documentation and announcements on transitioning these programs from their current 612 to a 512 endorsement. And then build you an expedited program amendment process to transition those over. We're not going to work on the standards right now for those. One, it's building capacity. Two, there hasn't been a demand from the field to get into those standards. And three, the one probably most highly trafficked of these, the industrial and technology education, or the TE endorsement, finally got a test very recently. So we'll get to those endorsement areas for standards and assessments at a later date, but we're going to transition to the new cert structure in 2024. The one thing I didn't reference, and I had intended to, is the library media and ed tech, that sort of dark gray bar across that. Standards for library, the new school librarian preparation are going to go before the board in January. Aklam has been fearlessly shepherding all of the documentation to get everything to the board. If you saw the last month's board meeting, where there was a lot of conversation about library policies and selection policies, and that we anticipated it'll be a hot topic in January, but with a lot of support from the field. We right now have one program in library media, and that is at Wayne State University. So this will definitely affect Wayne State once those standards are implemented. But we really hope that it inspires other institutions to develop these programs, particularly if you already have a library science program that you can build upon for that. So there we go with that one. For near future conversations, so there's something got snuck on the agenda, and I talked with Diane, and we couldn't recall how it got on there. It's stackable credentials in Montessori. It's not the focus of what we have, but these are things that are very much on our mind. Articulation agreements, stackable credential systems, and degree transfers. One, in the space of community colleges. We talked about this a bit with the deans and directors at the last Dartep. Those who said they were interested, we've got your names down. We're ready to reach out to you. We're collaborating with Michigan Community College Association, and we'll be connecting with MASU, Dan Hurley and his team, Michigan Association for State Universities, and then the ICU, or MICU, the names change, the independent.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for hanging in there with us. The sooner we quiet down, the sooner we get to go home. So I'm going to report out for accreditation, and then we'll just move through. We have a Sienna person that was in each room to report out. So in the accreditation space, Catherine Wygett was there and leading us, and that was lovely as always. And we talked about gonna get this Calvin. Calvin just went through an AQUIP pilot, and it was a very successful visit. And the University of Michigan Ann Arbor just had a CAPE visit. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that went well. The site visit was seamless because they managed all the Zoom stuff from one Zoom room, and that was great. And my third point is that the MDE is trying to help us work on disaggregating data. And so we talked about a number of different things besides VIA, which is now SLL, whatever. Anyway, so we talked about a number of different things like that. Those will all be in the notes that Stein will send out later. Okay, Sally, I think you're next.
I have 2 pages, but I'm only gonna read a very blip of it. So we say thank you to Sean, to Dana, then to the Central Region Director of NASDAQ, National Association of, what's the S? State Directors of Teacher Education Certification. Krista Reed. She's the new Central Region Director, so that's pretty awesome. And Bridget, so thank you for that. Our first hour was a working hour, and it was amazing. And we kind of concluded by asking if Krista would put something together in a video format that we could have on the website that we could pull from and use for different things. And she said yes. She's working on it. And then our 3 things, I could have listed 30. How far back should an EPP go to accept somebody's accreditation or somebody's coursework, etc. And then we decided that was up to the EPP, as long as the certificate and the endorsement is still available. So that's EPP level. Out of state with an out-of-state cert coming in with 3 years of teaching under that valid cert, and whether the fact that they don't have to take their MTTC. The first time ever of an MTTC test taker after October 2nd. So if you took it first before that, you're not considered, and you take it again after, you're not considered a first-time test taker. Okay, so it has to be first time ever after October 2nd. You can get the reimbursement for that. I have 2 more. The alt route, we did a lot of conversation about the reciprocity scenarios and how that's evolved. And the gist of it was keep at it, that we're on the right track with the way we're doing business. When all else fails, contact Dana Utterback. And the last one is that the MDE has lost a lot of money on bets with the Welcome Back project. Of wondering whether it was going to go well or not, and that it took off, and it went really well. Dana has done, Krista has done a lot of work with flipping the script or flipping the cert, as far as,
I know it's hard, right?
wait, it's right here, prepared versus authorized. That a lot of students are coming through that are authorized to do X, Y, and Z, but are they truly prepared? And the new grade vans are really hitting home with a lot of that. So there's so much information that we did in that first hour. So I look forward to when that comes out for everybody. Take a look at it when you do it, but we had a lot of information. Thanks.
Thanks, Sally. I don't have any jokes. Hard act to follow. So I'm Jennifer, representing deans and directors. We had a pretty robust discussion about lots of things. The 3 things I'm going to talk about: articulation agreements versus transfer agreements, and how those work or don't work or should work. That was, who decided it was above our pay grade, right? We need to get financial aid engaged with us. But Ferris, if I could call you out, has a really cool agreement with Grand Rapids Community College and Ferris. They are Ferris students, and their financial aid covers both if the articulation agreement is signed and the courses meet or work toward the degree. Okay? Then financial aid can cover both classes, so they can be students in both places, which I thought was really interesting. But so it's just some more thinking about that. Clinical accountability, we talked about it this last time, we brought it up again this time. Just where do we put the new BKP3 folks? Are there certified teachers in the BK field? And there really aren't that many. And then we talked about the special education component of it. and the primary versus secondary placements. So clinical field placement is still a sticky wicket for us. And then clinical accountability, that was another. No, we talked about can you pass the course without doing the clinical work, or can you do the clinical work without the course? And some institutions have it so knitted so tightly together that you can't pass one without the other. So that was a really neat model. And then we started to talk about the CPAS and how all of that aligns with the clinical work. And then some questions about MTTC pass rates. So that's about what we talked about. Thanks.
All right, I'm Carrie, and I'm going to report out for clinical placement. But before we do, Ferris, kudos to you guys. Will be offering again or hosting again the field placement Fandango on August 1st. Is that correct? Yes, yes. I just thought Fandango kind of pulled it all together. So thank you again, Ferris. We appreciate that. Okay, but that's not one of the three. Okay, so here's the first of the three. One of the questions was, how do you keep track of field experiences, varying pieces and verify that they were there? So I'm going to kind of clump those two. A couple of the universities, such as Madonna and Ferris, talked about how the use of Excel and varying degrees of how they use the Excel sheets to track. Could be color coding, or could be with some pretty advanced formulas. H from Madonna has graciously said that he was going to send, Beth's going to send it out to the clinical field placement supervisors, his template that he uses. So thank you for doing that. Let's see. A lot of the universities, we use Watermark via the student licensure and learning, and ours are tracked through the via logs and the verification. And then also U of M Dearborn utilizes the smart sheets. So okay, so second piece, how much choice do we give students? Especially, where does the paid placements, that type of thing comes in. This was very this had a very wide range of responses per the university. Most did agree that they don't give the student the opportunity to say no. A lot of districts have to go through HR. Some placements we have a little more leeway with. One of the concerns, a lot of districts, especially when it comes to final student teaching, offer maybe 3 choices, things like that. A couple things came up. One was a concern with what do we do with the 3 6 students that need that 6th grade elementary, and finding sort of that self-contained elementary that is not in a middle school, that's actually placed in an elementary. And some really good suggestions were provided to us in terms of go back and really look at the clinical guidelines and think about what can be used if wherever you're having difficulty placing, and not just with 6th grade, but if there's other particular placements, what can you do in lieu of those hours in relation to flex hours, things like that could help fulfill the same need. And then the other 2 other things with that was in regards to paid placements and subbing. And can subbing count? One of the things we talked about was that if a student is subbing somewhere and they want to count placement hours, there still has to be oversight by a mentor. And then that there also has to be some sort of evidence from it in terms of if that student they're using subbing as clinical hours, then it needs to be, videoed and or there has to be analysis and reflection piece if that is going to be used as an option. Okay. Oh, and then the paid placements. depending on the area, we're seeing a lot of students come in for final student teaching with special ed and with math that are coming in from the start, having a paid placement because they're fulfilling positions in the districts that just can't get filled. And then there was also the question of what if a district wants to hire a student before they're done with a traditional placement? Different universities had different policies in relation to that. It could be, did they pass the MTTC? Have they completed at least the minimum of the 12 weeks? How does that affect if they were getting, the stipend from the state? So there was a lot of discussion with that. And then the last piece was, what are you doing for mentor teacher training? This also varied. Some are offering Zooms. Some universities are meeting in person with the mentor teachers. Some are simply sending PowerPoint to try to train versus detailed, paperwork. And then some are also doing in-person training. Oakland had some successful situations where they were analyzing different student teaching videos and what do you do, how do you coach a student or mentor them when they're struggling and how do you handle that? So it's a very wide range response. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
We want to thank very much Brian Sunderman, who made all the technology happen. Of course, our Brian here, who also made all the technology happen, Beth and Stein and everybody who contributed today. And I look forward to seeing you on February 2nd. Is that right? February 2nd. Online. Oh, Sally's got an announcement.
I want to thank Diane and Jennifer for the job that they did putting this together, not only for the online piece, but for something new in the morning, trying to do the posters. So if you get a chance, if you haven't had a chance to see the posters, take a chance to look at them.
Thank you. Sean was telling me that MDE was very pleased to see the posters and sharing, and they have some ideas about moving that forward. So there may be some more poster stuff in April. So we look forward to seeing you online in February, and please drive safely on the way home. Bye-bye.